What's up, traders? 6 total trades today. What a blah day. Let's get to it. All right, traders. So first off, today sucked. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it just started off on the wrong foot, as you can see here with WKHS. And it always seems that the first trade seems to kind of set the tempo for the remainder of the day. And, you know, I really liked this trade when I got into it, and I should have ended up really liking it after I was done with it, but unfortunately I didn't follow my plan. So my plan was, I saw it shoot up here at the bell. It felt really toppy. It was the only thing kind of moving right at the bell. And I told myself, okay, we'll play the toppy jiggle feel here at 29, see if that wants to be the top, kind of like a sloppy seconds bouncy ball type effect, and come back down towards the lows. That was the idea. And we had a really nice tight stop, which was basically high of day, high of the pre-market at 29.50. I even went through, which I could show you, I'm not going to, but you can just trust me on this. I was going to put the order in at 29.51 and for my stop and leave it there. And then it was tried again. And then as it was squeezing up, it was such a fast squeeze. It's not that I missed it. I should have already had the order in, right? But I said, okay, well, if it wants to do that, let's see if it squeezes through, tries to get somewhere, you know, over that 29.50 area, rejects. I'm going to get an add, and then we're going to hit it on the way back down. That was the immediate change of plan, complete emotionally controlled idea that quick was implemented into my head, right? That's how quick your emotions can change your plan. That's why this profession as a whole can be this hard, because your emotions take over and over again. You can come into something with a plan and literally 5 seconds later it completely changes because of something that happened. The idea was 30. Let's go look at the daily at what the overall plan was, right? That was the overall plan, but there was a reason behind it. Look up at the all-time highs. They're up here around 30, what was it, 30.80. So the plan was, it's probably going to squeeze to try those all-time highs if it gets through this 29.50 area. What did it do? Exactly like we planned, right? The whole idea was, okay, if it wants to stop here at 29 and then kind of fade the rest of the day, that'd be awesome. We see that happen all the time. Let's get our piece of it. But if it doesn't, don't be afraid to stop out and then look for re-entry if it wants to squeeze up to those all-time highs, all-time high areas, which is exactly what it did. But instead, that was exactly where our max loss was because of where our entry was, right? That's where our 1Q is set, 1Q, 1R, whatever you want to call it. And that's where we ended up getting stopped out. I mean, it's very unfortunate that that's where it was and it wasn't like above this level. But for our sizing, for what we were looking for a move back down, that's where it put it. So it's unfortunate that we sat there because we were looking for an add, right? Remember our plan that was adjusted that quick. We were looking for an add through 29.50, but the original plan, the one when we weren't in the trade, the one where we could see what was going on without the emotions involved. The person that was smart before they got emotionally involved saw that this was a key area, obviously in pre-market. If it wanted to go through that, there was a daily level, which was the all-time highs, sitting there at 30.80, and it was most likely going to try to squeeze right to that area, which is completely threw all that logic right out the window once we got into the trade and we let our emotions take over. This is why they're so important. And look at how nice this trade would have been. If we would have cut here, would have been a small loss, would have gotten back in up near the highs here, probably right as it failed 30.50, and then rode this thing all the way back down. That would have been such a nice trade. But instead, we take a max loss on it, and it really gives us no re-entry, right? The only re-entry here is if we stop out and it goes through that key area and on the same extension. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So what could have been a great start to the day ended up being a horrible start to the day because we let our emotions get to us. Completely dismissed our plan within these 2 minute, 2 minute candle. And it was more like 30 seconds I had changed it because I was like, okay, if this one's a pop, you know, we'll see what it does, instead of just putting the stop in. And I was literally typing in the stop and just never put it in. So very frustrated with myself to start the day. And I'm not going to say it completely affected my trades overall throughout the rest of the day, but it did affect it like a little bit as far as getting a little bit more greedy for take profits. And I've noticed that's a pattern with me, is instead of taking profits where I normally would on trades after a loss or before a loss, like if I was winning on the day, I'd probably be taking profits a little bit more proficiently. But when I take a loss to start the day, I tend to try to get more out of my winners, which isn't a bad thing. But if I'm going to try to get more out of my winners after a loss, I should still be trying to get more out of my winners all the time. It shouldn't just be because I took a loss and I'm trying to make back that loss. So yeah. And then the very next trade that we take is NET. And look at what this one did to us. This thing absolutely ran out of the gate. It felt really good with the entry, I'm not going to lie, but then it just kind of started grinding a little bit, and it tried to come back down. Could have got out break even here, decided to give it a sec, see if it wanted to go up and test. Still nice and extended. Went through, kind of faked out up here at 51.60. We got to add, and we were just looking for it to come back down. Again, we could have got out break even when it made this move back down to 50.85. Our average was at 50.88. But obviously we're looking for that bigger move back down to at least test this area of 50.43, like, just looking for the retest of that. But instead this thing just decided to grind, and that actually ended up being not only a good cut at high of day, but it actually ended up being where our max loss was anyway. So it ended up being kind of both, and we actually ended up getting like 11-cent slippage on this one, I think, because our order was at 63, and we actually ended up getting filled at, let me get rid of this line, at 74, yeah, so it was 11-cent slippage. And that was NET. So this one was pretty standard, just unfortunate. We didn't misplay this one by any means. It just didn't work out. So this one would have been a max loss irregardless of kind of what happened. Then we actually played NVIDIA, $565 stock. We actually ended up playing this thing. Ended up being appropriate sizing. We used our $2 button, gave us five shares. When this popped up, it was at 565 area, and we were looking for it to come back down to about 563 to get our take profit, which was about half of the move from here. Let's see where 563 is, right about there, and our entry. So it was actually a little bit above. So we actually might even have been a little heavy on the share size. It decided to keep on going, right? Nice extension. We kind of waited for it to confirm. Our max loss was up near 569, somewhere around there. And we ended up getting a nice ad right when we realized this thing was about to reject, and it was a nice ad there. Ended up bringing our average up. Got a nice cover for half. Put a nice one right down there towards VWAP for the other half, and it ended up working out. So this is kind of what I was talking about. We can never, on NET, we can never lose more than 1R unless we get slippage like we did here. And then on WKHS, even though this was a crap trade, we still only lost 1R, 1Q, whatever you want to call it. So we can only always lose that amount. However, on something like NVIDIA, we're not always only going to make 0.33 of that R, 0.33 of that Q. There's sometimes where it can be more than that. This ended up being almost 0.6 Q, right? So we actually almost ended up making back what we lost on just one of those trades that didn't work out on NVIDIA, which is pretty awesome if you ask me, because you're only planning on making about 1/3. We're only shooting for 75% win rate here to break even. But if you're hitting things like NVIDIA every once in a while, then you only need 50% to break even. And actually, if you're making what we did on NVIDIA, you would need even less than that. So the idea is to have trades like NVIDIA more often than not, obviously. So when our win percentage is at that 80% plus, it's going to be really nice because you're going to end up bringing in, obviously, more profits. So then over to CGC. CGC, this one was kind of a bummer because it was kind of grinding, not really. I kind of liked the move up. I liked, it felt really toppy here. I was watching it. I wasn't really looking to play it. I was just kind of watching it. And this was probably a little bit of FOMO, just saying, hey, I like the extension. But, looking back, it really was not my trade. And I'm a little mad at myself for what I ended up doing in this. But probably should have never been in the trade to begin with. But if we go to the daily, we had that key area. That's where that line came from. It was a double top from previous times on the daily. And so that was kind of what we were playing. We were just assuming that this was going to be the top. We were just going to look for a quick move back down there towards previous resistance, maybe VWAP, and we'll just take it, right? That was literally just a support and resistance extension play. That's all it was. It was not my 100% edge. This is not my A+ move. If we're talking poker hands, this was probably like pocket nines, something like that. Worth kind of seeing what it was all about and kind of going from there. I never let it get out of hand. This is one where if it didn't work, it was not going to be a max loss. We ended up going a little bit higher after it tried to go down, squeezed up a little bit. We gave it some room, added to it, and again, we were risking high of day here. Our max loss was up higher. But the problem here was I realized once we got to this point, this was not the trade we wanted anymore. It clearly had support here from this move down. When it got back down there, I put an order out right above that to front run it for half my shares, but I wanted the other half down closer to VWAP or this previous resistance down here at 1913. Unfortunately, we did not get that. As you can see, it got bought right back up, and silly me decided to wait for high of day to stop these out, but I was really trying to give this a chance to have like that bouncy ball effect and maybe turn over. But the weed sector is kind of hot right now because of the election and Biden saying they're going to legalize weed and all that stuff. So that was kind of what happened there with CGC. Then we had MRNA. This one was a pretty standard trade. Finally, we had at least one. But we actually ended up going half size because of the range and the spread on this one. So I took what would have been our normal share size and I cut it in half, but because as you can see, it looks pretty normal. If you take these lines here, previous resistance, high of day, and then look at where we took our profit, right? Pretty much 50% of the move. So it was a good trade. Just a little unfortunate that we didn't have the regular share size, but I did that because the spread at one point was like 80 cents. Even when we took this, it was near high of day. High of day was 75.65, or wait, 75.85 right there. But we got our fill at 75.61. So it came up through. I remember saying, "Come on, bid," because it was. When it was high of day at 75.81, it was, or 85, the bid was actually down there at 75.20. And then I saw the bid pop up through 75.50, and that's when I hit the button. So that was actually why I remember hitting the button. And we went smaller size, so I wasn't really afraid to get into this trade. Nice little descending triangle here, and it ended up completing. Caught the bottom of this move, and then it created another little descending triangle, kind of that bouncy ball effect we were looking for on all of our other trades. But unfortunately, this was the only one that gave it to us, and we didn't end up scaling out of this one because we were smaller size, right? That's how it always works. And then last trade to kind of close the day off was a right or right out trade on VUZI, VUZI. And as you can see, nice little pop here right off the scanner. And it popped up 514, tried to come down through 510, went back up to 514, jiggled again, and it started to come back down. I hit it at 510. As you can see, we were right. It came all the way down to 504. And then as we had an order sitting there right at 5 just to get our 10 cents on 100 shares, which would have gave us our 10 ball. And I said, okay, well, it started this pullback. If it wants to go higher, I'm not really interested, especially if we look at the daily. That was the key area, 510. So I told myself if it got through 510 and it wants to consolidate and then try to go higher, the odds are this thing's going to absolutely squeeze. So as you can see, it stopped us out, dropped right back down, did not get to 501, got to 502, squeezed all the way back up the high of day, and now it finally came back down. So that one's a little unfortunate. If we would have had something like this earlier in the day, we definitely would have been sitting in it still, right? Because there would have been really no reason to get out of it. Maybe we might have stopped out here because it tried twice and didn't. And so when it went high of day again, we probably would have assumed that it was going to go, for a nice little squeeze. So could have ended up topping this, but again, it still would have been a paper cut loss, just like it ended up being anyway. So I feel like, I'm pretty sure either way, probably would have ended up taking half off here though, when we got that close. I don't think we're going to let 1 penny keep us away from, or it's actually 2 pennies, but I don't think we're going to let that keep us away from taking most of our position off, and then we would have cut the rest there at high of day. So just a very frustrating day. We ended up down about 1.5 Q. Which is really not that crazy, right? That's what, 4 trades to make it back, where before, when we'd have trades like NET over here that continues and we end up, we might get caught in this all the way up here, right? And then our average is somewhere down near VWAP right now, and we're still, in this trade. Same with WKHS. This one actually would have ended up being a winner, but I mean, I guess NET is the better example here. A big loss that could have been taken on NET was prevented, and now these can be made back very easily with the way that we're running things now. So that's all I have. That was actually probably a pretty long video, so sorry for that. Hopefully you're still sticking around. If you are, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciate that support. If you do have any questions or comments, leave those down below. There's a Discord link down in the description as well. We hang out in there for most of the day, and I will hopefully have a better day tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.